Hi, and welcome to this introductory video on how to write SQL statements. We're going to start off by looking at how we can select data from a database by using a select statement, and then we're going to look at how we can filter that data with the where clause, and then finally we'll look at how we can order some data with the order by clause. This is part of an introductory set of videos that will teach you all the basics of how to write SQL, and the easiest way to find that is to click subscribe, and then you can look at the playlist for this set of videos. So let's start by looking at our environment. So we're looking at Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, and we've got a database here that we're going to use as our sample on writing SQL called AdventureWorks. And let's expand this, and we can see all the tables here. So we've got the tables section there, and we've got all the various different tables that we can write queries against. So let's give ourselves a query window where we can start to write some SQL. And to do that, we can go to our AdventureWorks database, right click and say New Query. We've now got a space where we can start to write some SQL. So to get some data out of a table, we need to use the keyword select. So let's type select, and then we need to say that we would like to select some data from something. So we need to use a keyword from. So let's type from. So we're now going to say we want to select some sort of data from a particular table. And we can see that we've got a list of tables on the left-hand side here that we might like to be able to use. And the one I'm going to use in this demonstration is the product table. So we've got this production.product table there. Now I can either type it in or I can just drag and drop it. So I am going to drag and drop this over there. So we're going to say we want to select some kind of data from the table product. So what type of columns might we want to select? Well, I can type in all the columns here, or to save myself some typing, I can also come over to production.product, right click that, and say select top 1000 records. And then I can copy these columns and see it's opened up a new query window here. I'm going to swap back to the other query window and I can paste those in. And just to keep things neat, I'm going to tab all of these across and keep them in alignment. So let's select all of those and tab those across. All right, so they're all nicely aligned now. So this says I've got these columns that I want to select. So I want to take the column product ID and I want to take the column name and all of these other columns, and all those columns exist in the product table. So I'm going to select all of these columns from production.product. And to execute that, I can press the execute button up here. So let's do that. And you can see that that's now brought back all of these columns and all of the rows that are within this table. So that's how we select data from a table, and I can change this to any table name. I've got all the table names listed down the side here. I could change that to any of these others, and indeed I could change that to any of the other columns. So if I wanted to select data from job candidate, for example, I could instead select these columns from the job candidate table. So the next thing that we might want to do is to filter some of these records. We don't necessarily want to bring back all of these records. And to do that, I can use the where clause. So let's say where, and we now need to specify some kind of condition under which we only want a particular subset of records to be brought back. And the first thing that we're going to do is, for example, we might want to filter on some kind of condition on list price. So if we copy that and we paste that down here, so we can say that perhaps we only want to bring back list prices where the value is greater than 10, for example. So if I hit the execute button now, all the list prices in here, so there's list price there, all these values will in fact be greater than 10. And if I want to add more than one condition, then I need to use some logical operators. So I can use words like and or words like or. So I could say that I want a particular condition to be true and I want another particular condition to be true. So let's type that. Let's say we want list price to be greater than 10 and I want something else to be true as well. Let's say we want product line to be maybe null. So let's go and find product line. If we search for that, if we can't see it. So there's product line there. Let's copy that and paste that down here. And let's say we only want values where product line is null, for example. Now, in some other languages, you might use the equal sign or not equal sign. But SQL, when we're looking at nulls, we need to use the terminology that says is. null. So rather than using an equal sign or a double equal sign, we'll say is null instead. So if we run this now, we've now only got back records where the product line is null. So if we look at this column here, all of those records are now now null. Sorry. So in order for these records to come back, it both has to be a list price that's greater than 10, which it is, and this value has to be null. Okay, so let's add in another filter condition that we might like to do. So this time we're going to look at some stock values. So let's find stock. And let's use the safety stock level. So let's copy that and pop that down here. And again, we need to use our condition and. So let's type and. So we might like, for example, the stock level to be between two values. Now there's various ways of doing this, but SQL provides an explicit term called between. So we can type between. So we might like, for example, this to be between 4 and 500. So this will now only bring back records where the list price is greater than 10, the product line is null, and the safety stock level is between 4 and 500. And you should note that when we use the between keyword, the 4 and 500, so the limits, are inclusive. So if the value was 500, it would bring back values that are 500. It wouldn't exclude them from those lists. And then the final thing I want to show you in the where clause is wildcards. So this is sort of like a search. It's a filter. Enables us to do some kind of text filtering. So let's do that on the name field. So if we copy name and we paste that down here, and we might want to say where name contains a particular text, for example. So we need to use our and keyword to say and there. So we want list price to be greater than 10 and product line to be null and stock level and safety stock level to be between two values, and we want some text to be contained within our name column. So to do that we can use the keyword like. So let's type like, and we can use our hyphens to indicate that we're going to start typing text, and we can use a wildcard, and that's going to be a percentage sign. So what that says is a percentage sign represents kind of any text. So if we were to, for example, to type the word classic, then that's going to say that I want all the values name where it contains the word classic. So we can have anything before and anything after the word classic, but it must contain the word classic. Now let's do an example of that. Now I'm going to add something. I'm going to comment out these two lines. So we comment that out with a double dash. That means that these lines will no longer run, and you can see that that's turned green. So the only filters that are now going to run when we run this will be that list price should be greater than 10 and name should contain the word classic. So let's run this and see what we get. So we can see here we've now got classic in these words, in this column, sorry, and we've also got classic here. So it's filtered out only records where the name contains the word classic, and also that list price is greater than 10. So if we look at list price, we can see that all these values are greater than 10. Now there's a lot more that we can do with where filters. I've got a fuller course called a complete course in SQL. If you'd like to look at that, I'm going to put a link at the end of this video, and that will go into much more detail on all different ways that you can filter data and order data, and it takes you a lot more advanced topics as well. So we have a look at all sorts of extra things on top of this. But this group of tutorials is an introductory session. It will get you up and running on SQL and being able to write reasonable SQL statements. So let's look at the final thing in this tutorial. We're going to look at how we can order our data. So if we type the word order by, that will enable us to order our data in some way. Now, if I go and select name, for example, what I'm going to do is order these columns by name. So we're going to expect these S, M, and L to occur in alphabetical order. So let's execute this. And we can see that now we've got L, M, S. So obviously L is before M, is before S in the alphabet. So this has now ordered these records in alphabetical order according to the name column. So to select data from a table, we need to use the keyword select. We then specify our columns and we separate those by comma. We then use the from keyword and we specify which table we want to select data from. Then we can filter data. We can pick out particular rows that we want by using the where clause, and then we can put our various filter conditions in here to only bring back those records. And finally, we can order our data by using the order by term. Now you can find links to the rest of this course at the end of this video in a second. You can also find links to my website where I've written articles on attached to all of these videos, so you can find that at www.padsresearch.co.uk. That's physics, aviation and data science research. And you can also find links to a fuller course if you want a more in-depth course that will take you through all these areas plus advanced topics and go into a lot more detail and give you worked examples of how to write SQL. In the next video of part of this series, we're going to look at how to use the not equal in SQL, and then we're going to look at various different data types and how to convert data from one particular type to another in the video after that. So if you found this useful, then why not click on the next videos and I'll teach you some more about SQL.